All right, welcome to Stories That Work. I'm Deacon Adam. My guest today is Father Paul, and do you live in Naples, Florida?
We do.
Okay, I love Naples. I don't know if I told you, I went there every year from like 97 to like 2010 for
Really?
spring break. Yeah, for spring break. I loved it.
You were that guy.
Yeah, I was that guy. Yeah.
For
You
spring
love
break.
when we come down, right?
Naples for spring break.
Before we get into our topic, and our topic today for Stories That Work is the power of earnest prayer. I actually misspelled it a couple places. I think I wrote it like Ernest, which is someone's name, like Ernest Hemingway. So I went back and fixed it, I think, in most places, because it's like we don't even pronounce it correctly where it's Earnest. But
Right.
English is
One of the
always. Yeah. So that's our topic today. But I haven't done a lot of episodes this summer. I've been swamped traveling. I just got back from the Antioch Archdiocese. I want to give two updates before we get into our topic real fast. First one is the St. Athanasius Academy is open for online homeschool tutorial. So if you're a homeschooling family or homeschooler, you know somebody, go check out the classes. And that's a foreshadowing for a little bit what we're going to talk about later. Also, the Academy is open for an Associate of Arts in Orthodox Theology. We announced this at the Antioch Archdiocese Convention last Tuesday. You can see a live broadcast on our Facebook page from last week where we went through all the stuff that we've been doing, all the resources that we're making available for parishes who want to pursue being healthy. And that's the idea that we need to be healthy Christians, both spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, and we need to be healthy parishes. And so and when we put that together, what does that look like? And so we rolled out lots of resources. We released 2 new book supplements. There's so much going on. I'll put some links in the notes, but I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want to spend time on today's topic on Stories That Work. Today's story has been working since the beginning of the earth. We could trace this back to Genesis, and today's story always works, but we need, I think, not just daily, but like throughout the day reminders, because it's so easy to be distracted. And mankind has been dealing with distraction since day one. So the power of earnest prayer, why don't you introduce yourself before we get into the topic?
Well, I'm Father Paul Girgis, the priest at St. Paul Orthodox Christian Church in Naples, Florida. I've been here about 2 years. Straight from St. Vlad's down to what they call Paradise, Habibi. That's what they say to me. Paradise, Habibi. Well, we all know there is no paradise on earth. So it's still beautiful, though. Thank God. Thank God.
I love it there. I love Florida, though. My wife doesn't ever want to go back, but
It's either one of the two extremes.
I love the weather. I love palm trees. I love the sun. I love the beach. I love all of it. So I wanted to talk to you about this because you shared a story with me that I thought was such a great reminder of what earnest prayer looks like, because it's so easy for us to give up in our prayer way too early. And, St. Paul talked about earnest prayer a lot, but I don't know that we always remember what exactly that looks like. And so, however you want to start the topic.
Sure. Well, I told you when you asked me to do this, you're making a big mistake. You're asking an empty vessel. And I can only imagine how many more better priests there are that you can talk to about this. And this is what I was thinking about before you called. But I will say something about what you're asking. When we had talked about the St. Athanasius Academy, am I interested in one of the courses? I don't know which one. I'm going to go to Mount Athos. Let's give it a shot there. Let's see if anything comes. Is there any better place than to, cast your cares into the hands of God than Mount Athos? It's the best place to do it. So we did it. And really, these things unfolded in probably the best way they could have, and that's just how God's providence works. So we spent about 5 days on Mount Athos, and it wasn't until the last day at Vatopedi that I thought to myself, I really haven't been praying. I had this thought. I haven't really been praying that earnestly about this. And whatever may come won't be to my credit. And I think that's a good thing. And so God, I haven't thought much about this. I'm in the Catholicon in Vatoperi during their Orthodox service. And I'm thinking, whatever you think is best, let it unfold. This is it. It was very simple. It was a focused prayer. I was all there. It wasn't just a rambling like my usual prayers, but it was there. And so we prayed and we continued our way. We finished the pilgrimage. We got off Mount Athos, and on the way back to Thessaloniki, we had planned to stop at the monastery of St. John the Evangelist in Soroti, where St. Paisios is buried, to go venerate his grave, something we weren't able to do. I wasn't able to do years ago when I went with His Grace Bishop Nicholas and the seminarians. So we went there, and our driver on the way said, well, we're delayed a little bit. They only open the gates at a certain time. And they may be closed. These are after hours. I said, just call them. And if St. Paisios wants to open the gates, he'll open the gates. Just call them. And tell them the Americans are here. I said, tell them the Americans are here, because that could work for us. In other instances, I would tell people I'm from Lebanon. That would work better for me. It just depends where I'm at. So we called, and the beautiful sister answered, and she was very, very thorough to make sure that we weren't pulling a number on her, that we actually were who we say, that he was who he says, and it was not an easy thing. But we made a request, and then she had called back and said, I had asked, and it's blessed. We'll open the gates for you guys, despite that we closed the gates, outside of normal hours. And so we were thankful for that. And I said, okay, thank God, St. Paisios, thank God. We get there, and the driver is blown away, because he would go to this monastery so much, and it's always just full of people, just crowded, long lines to venerate the grave of St. Paisios, venerate the relics, see the church, see the property. So we get there, we make the phone call, the gates open, we're the only ones. I mean, it's an empty parking lot. And I still don't understand what a blessing that is, because I don't live there and I don't go there, but our driver was just out of his mind in a good way. So we get there and we enter the monastery. It's absolutely gorgeous. And all we want to do is take pictures. But we have to be present, or else we'll miss everything. So we get there, we walk to the front of the non-existing line, and we kneel down at the grave of St. Paisios, and we make our matanyas, we make our bows, we kiss whatever there is to kiss, his icon, the cross, the plaque. We press our prayer ropes against them, things we brought home to be blessed. And one of the sisters was there to welcome us back down the steps in front of their main church, the Catholicon. And she had brought some lucumia, which is very traditional. And it was probably the best lucumia we tasted the entire trip. It was incredible. With some delicious water, refreshing water, of course. And she left again. And then she came back, and she had a little bag. And she said, "This is for you, Father. Do you have this book?" And she pulls this book out. And what does the book say? Passions and the Virtues, which is one of the courses we were trying to figure out, is this the best fit for me to tutor online, to teach through the academy? And right away, I said, uh-oh. I said, no, I don't, but now I do. Thank you. It was a very piercing question. I mean, this is not like the sea split so I could walk through. This was just a very consoling, I'm here, very beautiful, I'm present sort of message. And so I hadn't been thinking about it. I said the one prayer, God knows what I need, through the prayers of St. Paisios, who is beyond active in our times. Father, do you have this book? Father, do you have this book? No, I don't. This is your book now. Passions and Virtues. I said, wait till I tell a deacon about this one. Hopefully he buys it. And that's how we ended up here. So the more that you've been given, the more is required. if there wasn't enough pressure to teach a course online to young minds, now it's I cannot embarrass St. Paisios, but I think he knows what he's doing. So by his prayers, this course will be beautiful. We have a nugget of consolation and strength, and another piece of experience to carry with us, that God hears us even in the depths, especially in the depths of our heart. It doesn't have to always be, sometimes it has to, not always, long, lengthy prayers of great chest pounding, but simpleness. And again, it was a thought, it was a prayer. It's nothing I did other than that, just utter the words and cast it into God's hands. I think this is how St. Paisios answered. I'm so grateful.
I want to go back and remember something. I've never heard anybody be able to quantify in time what earnest prayer is, but I have repeatedly, and you mentioned this over and over again, we are told it's when you're fully present in the prayer. It may be 30 seconds, it might be an hour, but and we know when we're fully present in a prayer. And that's when we're called to us. So I really appreciate you sharing that aspect. And to add to the story, when I was working with our team on creating the course list or the subject list for these homeschooling classes, we knew we wanted to do Orthodox studies. We knew we wanted to do the Bible, and something just came to us that said we should do virtues and passions. And I don't really, and I didn't know where that came from at the time, but it just made a lot of sense. And I showed the list to you, and you said, that might be a course I'd be interested in. You had a short list, I think, of 2 or 3, and you said we need to sit on it. And I'm really good at being anxious to say, no, let's nail it down now. And you were like, no, I think I need to. And I said, and you said, no, I'm going to Mount Athos. I want to pray about it, give it some time. And so, when I stepped back and took a moment, I said, no, that's a good idea. I think what an opportunity to have that. So it's not that we didn't know in that moment how it was going to work out. And that's where faith played a part in our prayer, in your prayer and my prayer. And I've been living on prayer and faith for the last few months, launching this academy. There's no other way to get through the last couple of months other than faith and prayer, because I don't know how all of this is going to play out, but God keeps leaving little breadcrumbs, tiny little breadcrumbs. Okay, that's the path. And I'm like, man, those are small breadcrumbs, but I hear he wants me to calm down, be quiet, and earnestly pray.
Those are nice things. Calm down, be quiet, and pray.
Yeah. So when you told me that story, and the reason this is called Stories as Work is because God taught us through parables. We have so many amazing stories in the Old Testament. We have Jesus telling the parables of the New Testament. And so that story, we all, if we look hard enough, can find prayer that is working in our lives. And I think sometimes we can, if we're not careful, keep that to ourselves instead of letting that be encouragement for those who think that prayer doesn't work for whatever reason, or God's not listening, or he doesn't care about my prayer. And so this, like I said, at the beginning of this episode, this is something we've known from Genesis. God wants our prayers, and he wants us to pray not just once a day or twice a day, but at all times. That's our goal is unceasing prayer. So I don't know if this is going to be a story that you tell, but I know as a father in our church that you are encouraging your congregation to pray. What are what's been your approach and how you do that? Or do you have anything you can share? Because, I need reminders, and I also want to help others. We want to help each other have this regular reminder of prayer.
I mean, if we look to our Lord, who's the baseline, who's the perfection, what is it that he did so often was pray. I mean, it's so easy to go so deep and to make things, depends on who you are, very complicated. And I could do that very easily because I ramble. But our Savior, after his baptism, went out into the desert, into the wilderness, and he prayed and he fasted. He lived a spiritual life. an ascetical life. This is our example. So there's really no way around it. And as Orthodox Christians, it's so important for us. It's a key ingredient to read the lives of the saints. Read St. Paisios, St. Porphyrios, and St. John Maximovich of Shanghai and San Francisco, and the list goes on. I mean, it's really endless. These things give us consolation. I think I begin to slip when I stop reading as much as I should. Because so much, and you said this before, so much distracts us. So much distracts us. And to be aware that we can easily be distracted, that our spiritual life is so fragile, but so important, I think that can help encourage us to read some material, to read the lives of the saints, to read spiritual books, to remind us of the great spiritual potential we all have. And there we can be encouraged. There we can be encouraged. And from there comes prayer. I mean, when your heart softens from these readings, what do you want to do except be quiet and silent? You don't want to go do cartwheels in the front lawn, right? Silence, quiet, inner peace. Your heart is soft. It all comes from humbly reading the scriptures and the lives of the saints. And these things are nothing new, but they're easily forgotten. And we suffer because of that.
Well, as we wrap up here, our episodes are always pretty short. Reminder for those who are viewing, if you have a question for Father, you're welcome to ask it in the comment section. And our guests are always do their best to answer it. It's not always something that can be answered through a comment, but or a quick exchange. But the last thing I think I'd like you to consider sharing, and then you can close with your own words or your own thoughts, is, all of our clergy, from what I've seen, every priest I meet knows the importance of prayer. And every priest I've met has always been more than happy if I went up and said, I need help praying, will you help me? Mm-hmm. And every priest I know would say, yes, absolutely. If you don't know where to start, if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, go to your priest. And I think our clergy need to remember to extend that invitation. When's the last time you said, and not you specifically, as a priest, up from the pulpit, if you're not sure where to begin, if you haven't been praying for a while, if you need a Kickstarter, if you need a prayer rule, call me, talk to me, email me. That's what I'm here to help you do. That's you're the vocation without the vocation, as Father Alex, so that we may have the priesthood in our vocation. And so how do I pray when I'm at work? How do I pray when I'm at school? How do I pray with my family at dinner? So, I think that it would be easy for if I was pastoring a church to forget these little reminders and invitations. Yeah. So any closing thoughts on that, or anything else that you want to say as we wrap up?
I think one of the things I value the most is my relationship with Father Hans here at St. Peter in Bonita Springs, our sister parish. He always would encourage me and remind me that when someone comes for help, someone has an issue, pray with them. The counseling is beautiful. The counseling is necessary. It opens the door. It softens the heart a little bit. Okay. It gets them to a point, but the healing is in the prayer. That's where you make room for God. That's like St. Paisios says, you make an excuse for him to intervene. An excuse for God. You give God the reason to intervene into your life because he's so good at being careful. Make room for God through the prayer. And this is what Father Hans always encouraged me to do. And I'm grateful for that. I think the last little bit of that would be what my spiritual father has always taught me. Don't be a phony. Don't be a phony. Then he'd swat me on the head. Don't be a phony. So if I want to tell someone, come, we'll pray together, I'll teach you how to pray, I better darn well know how to pray. How can I give what I don't have? And this is the great weight of the priesthood, of any sort of church leadership. How can you give what you don't have? It must be cultivated yourself, or the demons will laugh at you. I mean, it's serious business. But thank God the church is a treasure, and we have everything we need here. We just have to get up, arise, and go, like the prodigal son. We have to do something. To get fresh air, you have to open the window. Tito Colliander says in The Way of the Ascetics, you have to do something. The church is the place to do it. Thanks for this.
Yeah. I don't know about you, I know a lot of people feel this way. I remember the first time I picked up Beginning to Pray by Metropolitan Anthony Bloom, and I was like, beginning to pray. And there's just like this little bit of pride of, what am I going to get out of this? And then you read it and you're like, okay, where's the introduction to this book? That's what I need. Apparently, I'm not even ready to begin to pray. That book is so amazing. So I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate the story. Thank you to St. Paisios for being present and helping us. And now we know that he, in some way, cares about this academy, and that he's listening. And so that's just amazing to me. Every time that we get a little message from the saints that they're present and they care, it's hard to process the magnitude of that, what that really means, because these people are alive with Christ. So it's incredible. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the topic and the story. It's such a touching story. I will cherish it for a long time, and I hope you continue to have some great weather in Naples.
Don't worry about that, big guy. We got this.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Until next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.